Welcome to voters, Brother Brown here. Pre-release is just around the corner, and as always, I'm here bringing you guys an in-depth guide to give you guys an upper hand when it comes to building your decks for the event. We have a lot of ground to cover, so let's not waste any time and let's jump right in. And as always, we're going to start with the Tamers for this list, and the nice thing about BT-15 is, besides two different Tamers in this set, every Tamer is a memory setter, and if you've played in these events before, you'll know having a memory setter, especially early on, could be game-changing. So we're going to start things off here with Zora. So while her effect I don't think is going to be very relevant for this event, so I'm not going to bother reading it over, it's just nice having a memory setter as well as a red card on board in case you want to activate a certain red option that I will go over later on in the video. And then moving on to our only Tamer that is not a memory setter, we have Matt Ishida. And his effect is, on play, you can reveal the top 3 cards of your deck to add one Gabu or Garurumon to your hand. While this is a very specific target, it can come up once in a while, but the real reason you want to consider this card is going to be for his other effect. So when one of your Digimon's effect would add a card to your hand, either by trash, you're drawing, any sort of way, you can suspend this Tamer by gaining 1 memory. And there's quite a few cards in this set that's going to allow you to proc this card, so definitely something you want to consider playing if you pull. Up next, in my opinion, I think one of the best Tamers in this set is actually going to be Kairi Chimera. So what she does is, when an effect would trash this card from your security, one of your opponent's Digimon gets -sec attack. So what's really nice is there's quite a few effects, especially in the yellow lines, that will have you trash cards from your security. So if you actually end up hitting this card in security, this could be a way to kind of get a little something out of that, so you're not really just losing out. But on top of being the memory setter, she also has a very good on all turns effect. So when an effect removes a card from your security stack, that's either your own or your opponent's, but by suspending this Tamer, one of your opponent's Digimon gets -sec attack. So it's another way to kind of lock out your opponent from doing damage, so while you're poking at them, they can't do much more. So, you know, very nice. Anything that is both a memory setter and does more is always just such great value. Then we got Izzy, which is another great card. So on top of being the memory setter for the green, he has on opponent's turn, when an opponent's Digimon attacks, by suspending this Tamer, you can switch the attack target to one of your suspended Digimon with Insectoid in its traits. Now again, this is pretty specific, but it's not impossible for this situation to come up, and this is a great way to kind of save yourself that damage, and potentially even have your opponent lose a Digimon, because if you have a big Insectoid on board, you switching it to that target means they're going to lose a body, so very, very nice. And then finally, we're going to wrap things up with Zhu Yulin. So she is the black memory setter, and she has an effect of, on main, you can mind link with one of your Digimon with X antibody or Digipolice in its traits, and then they'll be gaining this inheritable all turns. While this Digimon has X antibody or Digipolice traits, this Digimon gains Alliance and Reboot. And then at the end of turn, you can play her out of those sources back onto the board. So while Digipolice, there's not so much in this set, there's actually a decent amount of X antibodies. So while in the BT-14 format, those Tamers really, the Mind Link Tamers I should say rather, were really only there as just kind of like extra memory. While this, I think, could actually come up as a viable extra option. So you might be able to gate this Alliance or this Reboot off of this. So I think that's very nice. Again, like I said before, memory setters that do more is just phenomenal. Moving on to the level 3s, we're going to start things off with Biyomon. So Biyomon's effect is start a main phase by trashing 1 card in your hand with avian, bird, beast, animal, or sovereigns other than sea animal in its traits from your hand. Reveal the top 4 cards to your deck, and then you can add 1 red card to your hand. Now, this effect is a little niche, but it could potentially come up. But I think the most value you're going to get out of Biyomon is going to be this inheritable, which is really nice. So your turn, once per turn, when a card is removed from your opponent's security stack, gain 1 memory. that's really nice and definitely rewards you for playing aggressive. So definitely worth a slot. It is a super rare, so it's a little harder to pull, but nonetheless something you might want to consider. Following that, we have Machomon, and Machomon's effect is, once per turn, when one of your red Digimon attacks a player, draw a card. So as I mentioned before the mat, this works very, very well because you're going to be adding a card to your hand. Thus, if you have mat on board, you can spend that and not only get the draw off the Machomon, but gain the memory. And there's a few cards too that work with this. And on top of that, it's any of your red Digimon, so it doesn't have to be specifically this card that attacks to get that draw. It could be any other Digimon, but he also works too, so really nice. Following up that, we have Gabumon, and I don't think I have to explain that the Gabumon works really well with the mat. So his effect is, start of your main phase, one of your Digimon gains blocker until the end of your opponent's turn. Really nice to have blocker, but he also has more. Then if you have the Tamer mat in its name on the field, you get to draw a card as well. So lots of value, especially if you have the mat on board, and has a really nice inheritable to boot with that. For a when attacking effect, once per turn, draw a card. So just tons of value all around. Definitely a nice pickup if you pull it. Another super rare as well. All the rookies for the Digidestined are super rare, very similar to the BT-14, and all of them are quite good. Up next, we got Golemon X Antibody. So his effect, on play or when digivolving, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 card with Sea Beast, Plesiosaur, Beast King, or X Antibody from its traits to your hand, returning the rest. So this effect can definitely come up. There are a few sea animals, I believe, sea beasts in this set that you can bet you pull, especially X Antibody, and there's a few that I even add on this list, so this search could actually be relevant. But again, similar to the Biomon, the real value is in the inheritable, and this is probably one of the more powerful inheritables in this set. So when attacking once per turn, until the end of your opponent's turn, one of your opponent's Digimon with as many or few evolutions as this card can't attack. So this is a great freezing option to be able to stun your opponent's Digimon and lock them out from attacking if the stack is big enough. So if you're looking at like level 5s and level 6, this thing's going to have tons of sources underneath it, so it's going to be pretty much freezing anything that would be opposing it. Very, very nice card to potentially stun your opponent out. Betamon. So his main effect, I don't think is really going to come up. On play, if this card was played by an effect, one of your opponent's Digimon can't attack. So I don't think there really is any cards in this set that can proc this effect. But the reason why you want to consider playing it is going to be jamming. Again, really, really powerful inheritable. Jamming is great because even in the lower levels, you're just going to be able to swing without any fear of it getting deleted. And it's just really annoying. Really, anything that's just a basic keyword slapped onto a Digimon in these kind of events is always fantastic. So definitely, I think a must play if you pull this card. Tentomon, and he has a very powerful effect. So start a main phase by suspending one Digimon. One of your Digimon with insectoids in its traits gain 3000 DP until the end of your opponent's turn. So what's really nice about that is you can suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and be able to swing over it with something else, or potentially swing over another level 3 because you can pump up your own Tentomon to 4K. So that gets over pretty much any level 3 you'd have to deal with. And he has a nice inheritable to back that up as well. All turns, once per turn, when this Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon, gain a memory. So beautiful bonus to match with that. Very, very good card. Mushroomon. And Mushroomon has an effect of, on deletion, one of your opponent's Digimon can't unsuspend until the end of your opponent's turn. So what's really nice about that, if it's following up from your opponent's turn, maybe they attacked from previous turn, you can move this guy out from raising, swing in, it'll die from security most likely, it only has 1000 DP, and then you can just freeze that Digimon. Or if you really need to freeze that Digimon that badly, you can just crash into that very same Digimon that's suspended and keep it frozen. As well as there's a couple cards in this set that can force your own Digimon to be deleted, so that can also proc this effect. This is a very nice card. Hegermon, and Hegermon's on-play effect, while I don't think it's going to be very relevant, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, add 1 card with Machine or Cyborgs in his trade, and 1 black Tamer card. You can actually get this to search the black memory setter, so that could come up. But the real reason, again, why I'm playing it is the inheritables, of course, and this one gives Reboot, and Reboot is also so good in these formats. Just being able to swing freely and not having to worry about it getting run over the following turn. It's just going to resuspend itself. It's really helpful. Candlemon. Candlemon's effect, on deletion, if your opponent has 1 or less memory, you draw a card. If your opponent has 1 or more memory, though, you gain a memory. So no matter what, if this card gets dealt with, so let's say you swing and by some miracle it survives and your opponent wants to deal with the body, they could potentially punish themselves by shortening their turn. Or if it does end up getting taken out in security, you can get a draw for this. So this is a great way to kind of cycle through your deck and see your important pieces when needed. Last level 3, and that's going to be Digimon. So his on-play effect, you reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add 1 card with Myotismon in its text from among them to your hand, and then the rest go to the bottom of the deck. Then, if you added a card by this effect, you can trash a card in your hand. While I don't think this is going to be a relevant effect, it could come up though. The real reason is, again, you're going to hear me say it a lot, especially when it comes to these level 3s, it's going to be the inheritable, and that is it gains your Digimon Retaliation, and Retaliation is a fantastic removal tool, being able to just swing your weaker body into their stronger Digimon and just taking it out and not having to worry about it. So the level 4s, I think, is where this set really shines. And you know what? We're going to start things off with, in my opinion, I think is going to be the MVP for your decks, and that's going to be Miramon. So the first thing that really jumps out this card is its play cost. It's very low for a level 4 at only a play cost of 3. So it is the exact same play cost as your level 3 rookies. But the real reason why I think this card is going to be MVP is this effect is really good. So for your main effect, once per turn, by paying 2 memory, you can delete 1 of your opponent's Digimon with DP less than or equal to this Digimon. So at 4000 DP, while it's not deleting anything big, this is taking care of any small body. So a nice real play you can do is you can just hard play this early on and just kind of just sit on it, because a big strategy in these kind of formats is just the kind of rookie rush strategy you would see, just playing a lot of smaller bodies and just doing those small pokes in order to just slowly chip away and kind of outpace your opponent. This kind of just prevents that, because with this on board, this guarantees they can only set up so much and they're kind of forced to sit in the back and build up into bigger stacks, while you can actually play that rookie rush strategy in return. Definitely play it if you pull it. You should be able to see at least 1 copy of it. It is only a common in the set, so definitely an amazing card. Up next, we have something a little similar to that, but I don't think nearly as effective. It's going to be a Katarimon, and a Katarimon has, for 1 memory more, a little bit of a play cost, a little bit more DP, but has a nice little effect. Your turn, once per turn, when your Digimon attacks a player, you can delete 1 of your opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less. So again, being able to deal with those small bodies just by swinging. It's not nearly as versatile as something like Miramon, which you're not forced to actually swing with a card, so you can just pay your memory and just do it. But still, nice little card and option to have in your back pocket in case maybe you don't pull the Miramon, or maybe you want that extra little removal to deal with those small bodies. Bergermon. So when digivolving, you can return 1 of your red cards with Avian, Bird, Beast, Animal, or Sovereign in its traits from your trash to your hand. So a way to recycle some of your cards with those traits from your trash. But again, I think the reason why you'd want to consider playing this card is inheritable. It has the same thing as Biomon. When a card is removed from your opponent's security, gain 1 memory. And I think this card is a little more accessible because it's only an uncommon, not an SR like the Biomon is. So that is something nice you might want to have in your back pocket. Colamon. And Colamon's effect on play, trash the bottom 2 Digivolution cards of one of your opponent's Digimon. Then if your opponent has no Digimon with Digivolution cards, you gain 1 memory. So this is a nice little tool to get rid of some really nasty inheritables like you've seen in the previous cards we discussed. There is a lot of powerful inheritables in this set, so being able to deal with them very easily is always good. As well as could potentially get rid of any ace Digimon that might be lurking underneath those evolution sources, and that's a great way to proc the overflow effect, giving you a huge advantage. Plus the extra memory that you do get if your opponent's just been hard playing stuff. It's really good. This card ends up becoming just a 3 cost of play. At 5k DP2, that's pretty good for a level 4, so it's very nice. Digimon. So Digimon, for a 5 cost, it gains Rush. Now while it doesn't sound like that would be very relevant, there could be times where your opponent might be forced to hard play something at a very high cost, leaving you with a lot of memory, so this could be a very unlikely, but a potential way to kind of hard play this and just swing for game if need be. But again, I think the most optimal way you want to use this card is going to be for its inheritable, which is again jamming. And jamming is really nice, especially for a certain level 5 that we'll get to in a minute, and you'll see a very powerful combo with jamming as well as that card. So stay tuned for that. Jerrymon. And Jerrymon's another one of those cheap to play level 4s at only 3 memory for a hard play. And his effect is on play or on deletion, by trashing 1 card with Numemon or Shukamon in its name from your hand, one of your opponent's Digimon gains Sec Attack -1 until the end of your opponent's turn. So what's nice about Jerrymon is he actually counts as Numemon in his name. So if you have a second copy of this in your hand, you could potentially hard play one, trash the other one, and keep your opponent from being able to swing in to do damage to you. So something to definitely keep in mind when you're building your deck. As well as he has a really nice inheritable, which is pretty much the same thing, minus having to discard the Jerrymon. All it is when attacking, one of your opponent's Digimon gains minus Sec Attack +1. So really nice to slow down your opponent's aggression and keep you in the game. Wizardmon, which is a pretty powerful card in my opinion. So he has blocker. He is a little more expensive than the other level 4s at a 3 cost to Digivolve and a 5 cost to hard play, but I think his effects more or less make up for that. So on play or on deletion, by trashing the top or bottom card of your security stack, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 6k DP until the end of this turn. So this is a nice way to, even if you want to hard drop that for 5 to potentially get over a level 4, or maybe even a few level 5s actually on the lower end, this is a great way to have a removal option as well. And for 5 memory only to get rid of something, it's actually quite good. As well as being both purple and yellow to proc very powerful options that again we're going to go over later, is always a nice plus. Gatomon. So Gatomon has a very nice effect of when an effect trashes this card from the security stack, you may play this card without paying the memory cost. So this works well with something like the Wizardmon we just talked about. So if Wizardmon just so happens to trash this card out of security, if you got lucky, you just get a free body for free. And there's a few other cards that do the same thing. She also has barrier, so that's a great way to kind of be able to either swing in, and no matter if something is bigger than the Gatomon, you can protect it by trashing one of your securities, as well as having an extra protection in case your opponent wants to swing in and try to get rid of it. So it's a really annoying card to have to deal with. And on top of that, all turns once per turn, when a card is removed from your security stack, you get to gain 1 memory. So on top of being able to swing without any fear of it getting deleted, you also get bonuses for that by getting that memory, extending your turn. And then if that wasn't enough, she also grants barrier as an inheritable. So this is just all around a really, really great card. Again, this is another super rare, so not the most likely you're gonna pull it, but again, just like all these Digidestined partner cards, they are, if you see them, definitely try them out because they are fantastic. Woodmon, again, following the trend, very cheap to hard play at only 3 cost. And Woodmon's effect, your turn once per turn. When one of your Digimon becomes suspended, draw a card. Again, procs mat, very nice. And on top of that, very easy to proc as well, because suspending, that could be simple as just attacking with a Digimon, and that's just going to be consistently just gaining you more and more advantage digging into your deck. So very, very nice consistency card. Kabuterimon. So Kabuterimon has the effect of all turns while this Digimon is suspended, it is unaffected by effects of your opponent's Digimon. So what's really nice is you can swing in this thing, and if it does survive, maybe it has jamming underneath it, you don't have to worry about a Digimon popping this card by an effect because it'll be completely unaffected. So it's definitely a really nice card to just have longevity. The only really way to deal with it is to swing over it, which isn't the hardest thing at 5k DP, but it is still nice. And he also has a pretty nice inheritable. When this Digimon deletes an opponent's Digimon in battle, gain an extra memory. Numemon X Antibody. So like I said with the Golemon X Antibody, this can actually be searched by that card, which is really nice. So he is very cheap to hard play at 3, 2 to Evo normally. However, if you had that Jurimon in play previously, because it counts as Numemon, you can actually Digivolve on top of that for free and get an extra draw. So again, more cycling through your deck to see your best cards. That's really good. But he also has a nice effect to boot with that. So all turns, while this Digimon has Numemon or X Antibody in its evolution cards, it gains on deletion. You may play one card with Numemon in its name from your trash without paying the memory cost. So that's a really great way to be able to swing with no fear, because you're going to get a free body back once it gets deleted. And its inheritable is the exact same thing. On deletion, if it gets deleted, you can play one Digimon with Numemon from your trash without paying the cost. So Ginrumon. And while Ginrumon at first glance he does again have a very expensive cost to Digivolve, but a pretty reasonable hard play cost at 4. But the reason why we like him is he has blocker, which again, blocker's always nice, and has actually a little bit more with that, because he has on play or when Digivolving, you can suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. If this Digimon has a Tamer card with the Digipolice traits in its evolution cards, so the Black Tamer like we discussed before, that Digimon can't unsuspend until the end of your opponent's turn. So, I mean, that effect isn't nothing. That could actually come up and actually make a huge difference, so I think that's just really good. And then as its inheritable, while this Digimon becomes suspended, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamer with a play cost less than or equal to this Digimon. So again, this is just really great as an all turns, because if you swing in with level 5, you can just go ahead and suspend something else and then be able to run over that with another body. Really, really great stuff. Airdramon, and while his effect, again, I don't think is going to come in handy because it involves playing the Tamer that we actually didn't discuss. By placing Marvin Jackson from your hand underneath this card as the bottom evolution, you can de-Digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon. Not the very powerful effect, but again, the reason why we'd want to play him is going to be the inheritable of Reboot, which Reboot, like we discussed, is very, very good for these formats. Gardramon. So Gardramon is a blocker, which is really, really good. Then he has on player one Digivolving. By trashing one card with Machine or Cyborg from its traits in your hand, one of your Digimon cannot be deleted by your opponent's effects until the end of your opponent's turn. So again, a little specific, but it's not nothing. It could come up, but the reason why we like playing him is because he's a blocker and he has the inheritable of Reboot. Another thing too you want to watch out for this card is your turn while your opponent has no Digimon, this Digimon cannot attack. So obviously it cannot be an open board if you want to actually swing and do damage with this card. But more or less, if you want to do that, you could always just Digivolve on top of it and then you don't have to worry about that. Vilemon, 4 cost, blocker. his main effect, don't even worry about it because it really is not going to come up. It's more specific to the Apocalymon deck, but you need something that's a little more constructed for that in order to work. So really the only reason why it's here, cheap and blocker. Bakemon! And Bakemon's effect is really nice. So when digivolving or on deletion, you get to draw one card, then trash one card. Again, procs mat, cycles through your deck, really, really good. And then on top of that, he has a retaliation as inheritable. So another little plus to be able to get over pesky bodies that might have been sitting suspended. So to finish off the level 4s, we have Gessomon. So Gessomon is a blocker, and it has the on play or when digivolving effect. Your opponent may trash one Digimon card in their hand, and if they don't, you gain one memory. So it's a nice way to potentially give your opponent that hard choice of being like, do they get rid of something that they potentially might want to play next turn, or do they let you have that extra memory and make this only a one cost, being able for you to climb up a lot easier in your turn. As well as it has an inheritable, which doesn't seem like it would come up much, but there is a combo with another level 5 Digimon we'll go over just in a bit. All turns once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon is played by an effect, you gain one memory. As well as this card does have the added restriction like the Guardramon has, so if your opponent has no Digimon on the board, this guy cannot attack. So again, be mindful with that, because I'm pretty sure some people will call you out if you try to attack while they have an open board. So keep that in mind. Kicking off the level 5s, we're going to start off with a bang, because we have Skullmeramon. So the first thing you might notice is this thing is very cheap to evolve into at only a 2 memory cost to evolve on top of your level 4. That's very nice for a level 5, but where the kicker comes is this effect, and this effect is very powerful. So main, once per turn, by paying 2 memory, this Digimon gains Sec attack plus 1 for the turn. Then this Digimon may attack. So even if you pay the 2 memory and it goes over to your opponent's turn, this kind of acts like Blitz and it can still swing. And it pairs extremely well with jamming. So that Betamon that we saw earlier, or that Seadramon, is going to be really great for that, because if you have that underneath, you proc this effect, you're guaranteed to get through those 2 securities like nothing. So very, very powerful card. It is only a common. Definitely pick it up, especially if you have the Jammer inheritable cards that I discussed earlier. Branchiomon. Now Branchiomon is a little more expensive to digivolve at a cost of 4, but I think his effect more than well makes up for that. So on play or when digivolving, if your opponent has 4 or less memory, one of your opponent's Digimon with 8,000 DP or more can't attack until the end of your opponent's turn. Stun is really, really great. But if your opponent has 4 or more memory, you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 6,000 DP or less. So either way, if it has less or more than 4, they are getting a negative effect with that. So very, very nice. And then on top of that too, he has a nice inheritable. On deletion, return one of your opponent's Digimon with 7,000 DP or less to your hand. So just a win-win card all around. It's very, very good. So now we have our first ace of the set, and that's going to be WereGarurumon Ace. So the first thing, of course, is with the aces, they have a very low hard play cost at 4, but they have also the counter and blast evo effects, allowing you to digivolve on your opponent's turn in the same window when they attack as you would declare a block. To digivolve this guy in for free on top of a level 4, and his on player when digivolving effect is you get to draw a card. Then if you have 5 or more cards in your hand, you then trash one card in your hand. This works more or less with the other Garurumon support we've seen in the past 2 sets, but on top of that, this all turns effect is very, very nice. So when your Digimon's effect adds a card to your hand, one of your opponent's Digimon or Tamers can't suspend until the end of your opponent's turn. So even by using its own effect, this is a great way to lock your opponent out from attacking. because if you just go ahead and blast Evo into this, you can declare one of their Digimon that has not attacked yet and say it cannot suspend, and then their turn just really end from there. This could potentially save you from lethal damage, so really, really nice card. Again, you always have to worry about too the overflow effect, so definitely be aware of that when it comes to the aces. That's the way they balance them, so if they get removed in any way, you're going to be losing 3 memory. So something to watch out for, both for yourself when you're playing these cards, as well as when your opponent has them, because this is also a great way to take advantage of that. Then these next 4 cards, I put them a little in order, in a little different way than I normally do, because they all act kind of the same, and I think this is a very neat little strategy you might want to try out with these guys. So starting things off, we have Scorpiomon, and these work with the Dark Master archetype, but I think this effect is so wild that I think it's definitely worth trying out in your pre-release. So on play, you can reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, and you can add 2 level 6 or higher Digimon cards from among them to your hand. So while you might look at this and say, well, just searching a level 6 seems kind of redundant. I mean, it's a play cost 6 already, so that's steep. But keep in mind, if you have a memory center on board, you're really not giving your opponent much. But the reason why you would even consider doing this or playing this is going to be this end of turn effect, which I think is a little bit nuts. So by deleting one of your Digimon, so it could be this one or another one on board, you may play 1 Digimon card with the Dark Master's traits from your hand to an empty space in your breeding zone without paying the cost. So if you have one of the level 6 Dark Master cards in your hand, you get to place this on your empty breeding zone for free. So you get a level 6 Digimon absolutely for free for essentially doing nothing. So next turn, you can push up and have a very powerful Digimon to swing in with. I think that's extremely powerful. And all of them have really nice inheritables too. So even beyond that play that I just discussed, they have some utility. For instance, the Scorpiomon gives your Digimon blocker, which is really good. And then for the Cherrymon, all the same effects like I discussed prior, but instead of blocker as inheritable, you get piercing. Gigagermon, same thing, but instead you get reboot. And then last, Lady Devi, you get retaliation as an inheritable. So all really nice cards. Definitely consider playing this if you pull a couple of those Dark Master level 6s. Then following that, we're gonna go back to the Ace Digimon. We have Angel-Woman Ace, and I think this is probably one of the best Ace in the set. So for its on play and when digivolving effect, by trashing the top or bottom card of your security, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 6k DP for the turn. So this could potentially delete something at least 4 or lower, in some cases a couple level 5s as well. Then she has all turns once per turn. When a card is removed from your security stack, if you have 3 or fewer securities, recover 1. So this could be a really, really annoying card. If this effect would have dropped you down below 3, you then recover, so you basically lost nothing at all. And even if your opponent swings in and does damage, guess what? You can recover and just be able to just be really, really annoying and just keep yourself alive. So very, very powerful card. I absolutely love this card. And then to wrap up the aces, we have Mega Kabuterimon, and this card is no joke either. So on play or when digivolving, one of your Digimon gets plus 3000 DP until the end of your opponent's turn. Then if your opponent's Digimon is attacking, you may switch the attack target to this Digimon. So what's really nice about this, if your opponent decides to swing, you can declare counter, go into this card, use its effect to boost it up from its 7k DP all the way to a 10k DP, and then switch the target over to it. And at 10k DP, that's taking out literally anything that's not a level 6. So that is very, very powerful. And then on top of that, all turns, while this Digimon is suspended, it's unaffected by your opponent's effects. So if it had something like, say, retaliation underneath it, you don't have to worry about it deleting the Mega Kabuterimon Ace because it will be suspended and protected by that effect. So really, really good stuff. To wrap things up for the level 5s, we have a really, really powerful card in my opinion, Warus Seadramon. So Warus Seadramon has the effect, all turns, once per turn, when an opponent's Digimon is played by an effect, all of your opponent's Digimon gains on deletion lose 1 memory until the end of your opponent's turn. Now you might be thinking, well, what effect is going to be playing cards on my opponent's board? Well, that's when his second part of his effect is going to come in, the when attacking effect. When attacking, your opponent plays 1 level 4 or lower Digimon card from their trash suspended without paying the cost. And then any on-play effects will not trigger by this effect, so you don't have to worry about any sort of on-play effects that they might get as a bonus by using this effect. But then you may switch the attack target to that Digimon. So what's really nice is they play out the Digimon, you get to then swing over it, and then you're gaining a memory. And as I said before with the Gesomon, this can work really nicely if that card is underneath it, because then you're going to be able to gain a second memory because of its inheritable. Speaking of the inheritables too, this thing also comes with piercing. So really, really nice when you have your level 6 stack, be able to just swing, take out a body, as well as doing damage on top of it. So up next is the level 6s, and there are some very powerful boss Digimon to definitely consider playing. Starting things off with Canondramon, and Canondramon is quite powerful and also pretty easy to come by because it is only an uncommon. So Canondram's effect is end of your turn, once per turn, if your opponent has 4 or more memory, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest DP. So if you're at 0 and you did evolve into this thing, it already costs 4, so this already puts you in the right threshold to be able to delete their lowest Digimon. So if they've only built up 1 stack and went with that 1 stack, it's going to just be wiped out and not have to worry about it. But it also has another effect. End of your opponent's turn, once per turn, if you have 4 or less memory, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with the highest play cost. So what's really nice about this card is this forces your opponent to hard play stuff at a very high cost unless they want to have their highest played cost card get absolutely wiped out from the board. So this is a very nice card and definitely puts your opponent in a very tricky position when it's out on the board. So I definitely think this is one of the better level 6s. I mean, I'll even say it, I think this could be a big MVP for the pre-release set, so look out for this guy. Pukamon. So what's nice about Pukamon is he is a blocker, and having a very strong blocker is really nice because it's really annoying to have to deal with. But on top of that, on play or on deletion, you can trash the top 2 Digivolution cards of all your opponent's Digimon. Then return one of your opponent's Digimon with no evolution cards to the bottom of their deck. So it's really nice that this hits everything on board, so you can just clear out all the inheritables. It hits 2 instead of 1. You can potentially get rid of those aces, proccing overflow, and on top of that, being able to spin back a card to the bottom of the deck. All around, this is really, really great. You're probably not going to get this effect on play because playing this for 10 is very steep, but on deletion is very likely to happen, especially because it is a blocker. You can force your opponent to have to delete it. Very, very powerful, very annoying card to have to deal with it when you're on the opposite end of. Then we have our first Dark Master, and that's going to be Metal Seadramon. So like we said prior with those level 5s, you're able to get them into your breeding zone by deleting something and then move up, and then you have this guy. So his effect on play or when attacking, return one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon to the hand. So if you're able to get that combo out very early, this could be very annoying because this could potentially stunt their plays very, very quickly. They all have this effect of this Digimon can only Digivolve into a white Digimon really that's not going to be a big deal because this is, of course, for a Pokemon, but Pokemon's a secret rare, so it's very unlikely you're going to be pulling it or playing it in the set. The big downside with these cards, though, is going to be the end of your opponent's turn effect. Delete this Digimon, then you may play one Digimon card with Dark Masters in his traits other than Seedramon from your hand without paying the cost. So the deletion of this Digimon, that is unfortunately mandatory. So you're only going to get one turn to get off this effect, but on the off chance you do have a different name Dark Master in your hand, you get to play it out for free and then do the same thing when your turn moves over. They also have inheritables, but there is no level 7 you can Digivolve on top of it, so really just ignore that. But still, pretty nice. Then our next Dark Master, we have Puppetmon, which I think is probably one of the better Dark Masters because it just has a really, really good effect. So on player when attacking, you can return one of your opponent's suspended Digimon to the bottom of the deck. So at the bottom of the deck, they're probably not going to see that card for the entirety of the game. So that is very, very powerful removal. And of course, it has the same kind of effects as the Metal Seedramon. Can't Digivolve into it unless it's a white Digimon. And then the end of turn, deleting it and then playing another one out of your hand if you have another one in your hand to play. Then following that, we have a extremely powerful card. This card can be extremely annoying to deal with, especially for your opponent because it's just such a versatile and resilient card, and that's going to be Hercules Kabuterimon. So he has the effect, start of your main phase or when Digivolving, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, then one of your Digimon gains piercing for the turn. And this is going to proc every time it's your turn, so you get to suspend one of your opponent's Digimon, then you can swing in, get rid of that body, and do damage on top of that. But if that wasn't crazy enough, this also shares the same effect as the Kabuterimon line. So while this Digimon is suspended, it is unaffected by your opponent's Digimon's effects. So the only really way to deal with this outside of the option is going to be by battle. And at 12k, that's pretty difficult to get rid of. There's only a small handful of Digimon that can compete with that, unless it's a crash, of course. So very, very powerful card. Definitely, if you get this out, you're going to be sitting pretty good. Following up with the greens, we got Rosemon X Antibody. So this card is a pretty nasty floodgate because she has the effect of, when Digivolving, suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and one of their Tamers. That Digimon and Tamer cannot unsuspend until the end of your opponent's turn. So this completely locks out a Digimon and a Tamer for the turn. On top of that too, opponent's turn, once per turn, when a Digimon is played, you may suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. So what's really nice about that, if they decide to go and hard play something, that's going straight to being suspended, meaning you can swing over it the following turn. It also has another effect, but that's only if you Digivolve on top of a Rosemon, which there is no regular Rosemon in the set. But still, for the first two effects, I think it's more than worth playing. Up next is the next Dark Master, and that's going to be Machinedramon. So his on player when attacking effect is going to be D-Digivolve 2. So being able to D-Digivolve something by 2 stages. If that was an Ace Digimon, either underneath or on top, you just get rid of that and get all that memory back. Really, really good. And then again, of course, it gets deleted at the end of your opponent's turn, and then you can play another one in your hand if you have it. Paimon has his when attacking your on-play effect, delete one of your opponent's unsuspended Digimon. So if your opponent's been trying to play the game of, I'm not going to swing if anything, just hold on to make sure it survives, this is a great card to be like, you know what? Nuh-uh, buddy. It's going anyways. Venom My Otismon. So he's got Blocker, which is really nice, especially at 12k DP. That's really, really beefy. And then either on play, when Digivolving, or on deletion. So this effect is definitely going to proc one way or another. You get to delete one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon. So as long as it's not a level 6, it's getting taken care of. So Really, really powerful card. And then to finish things off, we have, I think, my favorite card of the set, but I'm a little biased because I'm excited to play the deck. It's gonna be Leviathan X Antibody. Now, you might think I'm crazy because you look at that evolution cost and say, oh my gosh, that costs 6 memory. Is this guy crazy? But hear me out. I think his effect is more than worthwhile to consider playing this. His trash effect, just ignore, because that's only going to work if you have a regular Leviathan, and he's unfortunately not in the set. But alone, this card gets Sec Attack +2. So one swing of this guy is 3 security checks. That could potentially wipe out an entire stack just on his own. Very, very strong stuff. But then he has the added bonus of when digivolving, if your opponent has as many or more Digimon and Tamers than you get to delete one of your opponent's Tamers, one of your opponent's level 3s, your opponent's level 5s, and their level 7s. Now, there's not going to be a level 7 on the board, so you won't be able to delete that, but being able to get rid of a Tamer, and on top of that, potentially a rookie and an ultimate, that's insane value you get off of a 6 cost. And if you have a memory setter on board and your opponent has a memory setter on the board, really, you're not losing anything. And this is the highest DP in the entire set at 14K. It is unbelievable. Definitely, if you pull it, give it a try. I don't think you'll be disappointed. So last but certainly not least is going to be the options, and BT-15 has quite a few powerful ones. And we're going to start things off with Meteor Wing. It has a 4 cost, so that's pretty cheap, especially for what it does. You can delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 15,000 DP or less. However, for each card they have in their security stack, you subtract 2,000 from the maximum DP based deletion this effect can do. So even at the start of the game, you can still delete something like a rookie or a champion, but the longer the game goes on and the lower and lower their security goes down, the more effective this card's going to be. When they're at about maybe 2 securities, you could probably start getting rid of level 6s and so forth. And I think with such a powerful effect like this makes playing the Zora Tamer worth it. If you see this card, consider playing the Zora because it is quite powerful. So up next, not the most powerful option, but still I think worth playing, is going to be Foxfire. So for 4 cost, you can return one of your opponent's Digimon that's a level 4 or lower to their hand. However, if you have Gabumon or Garurumon in their name on the field, you can return one of your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level to the hand. So let's say maybe you blast evoed into that where Garurumon earlier, then the next turn you could play this Foxfire and then just bounce a low level Digimon to their hand. However, if it's the only stack they have on board, you just get rid of that one card and you don't have to worry about it. And while this doesn't seem very powerful, if you've pulled something like the Mat, I think it's worth playing because in these formats, it's always nice to play the options that best match the color of your Tamer. That way, you know if these cards are in your hand, they don't end up being stuck and they're activatable. Something to remember when you are building. Next, I think probably the most powerful option in the set, I think only contended by one other one, and that's gonna be Celestial Arrow. So a little more expensive than the other ones that we talked about. This is a 5 cost, but I think that 1 memory is definitely more than worth it. So one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 6k DP for the turn. Then by trashing the top or bottom security card in your security stack, one of your opponent's Digimon gets an additional minus 6k DP reduction for the turn. So you could either use this to potentially delete 2 Digimon on board, or you can delete a big stack totaling up to 12,000 DP. So this one card alone for just 5 memory can even take out a mega level Digimon. As you guys know, DP reduction deletion is the absolute best kind of removal in this game. Very, very nuts card. Up next, what I think is probably a little more on the weaker end when it comes to the options, but I think it could have some nice little interactions with some other cards, so I thought it would be good to discuss. It's going to be Super Shocker. So what's nice about this card is it's very cheap at only 2 memory costs, so it's very likely that you're going to have the memory to spare to still keep it your turn. You can suspend one of your opponent's level 6 or lower Digimon, then one of your Digimon with Insectoid gains an extra 3 KDP until the end of your opponent's turn. There are some nice little combos you can do with this, like you can play this card if, let's say, you had a Puppetmon in Raising Prior from one of those plays with the level 5s, deleting it and placing it in there. You can move this up, and if you have the memory to use, you can play this card, suspend that Digimon, and then swing, and then be able to spin that back to the bottom of the deck, and then you won't have to deal with it ever again. This also can work well with something like Hercules Kabuterimon. You can suspend something else, and then beef this guy up to even stronger heights, so that way at 15 KDP, even if on the random chance they may have something bigger in security, like say a Leviamon X, you don't have to worry about it. It's gonna be able to swing in and delete anything and be able to deal the damage that you need to deal with. So something you may want to consider. Then following up, the contender for Celestial Arrow, and that's going to be Venom Infusion. This card is very powerful. It is the most expensive option to play at a 6 cost, but its effect, main phase, by trashing one Digimon card in your hand, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with a level less than or equal to the card you trashed. And if you trashed a card with Mimotus on in its text, you get to draw 2 cards. So what's nice about this is you can delete literally anything as long as you have, say, a level 6 that's just sitting in your hand. You can just trash it and just get rid of any problematic card, which is really nice. And you also have that nice little bonus when it comes to that effect by being able to trash Myotismon. So if you have, say, a Venom Myotismon that's just sitting in your hand, maybe you can't build into it right now, you can just trash it and get 2 draws. Like, I think this card's just a win-win all around, and definitely a very powerful removal tool. Well guys, that's gonna do it for this guide. Hopefully you found it helpful, and I wanna wish you guys the best of luck at your pre-release event. But as always, if you enjoy content like this, make sure to hit that like button, spread the good word by sharing the video, and most importantly, become a devotee by subscribing. Until next time, take care.